I'm going to put us on recording. So for those who missed it, so welcome everyone. I think we all know each other, or we're going to do a little exercise anyway, kind of a different sort of introductory exercise that Dorte is going to lead us in. But so yeah, I'm Andy Kaufman. I think most of you know me. Ellen Blackman is our usual co-facilitator, and she's joining us today. And also we have a special guest that I think all of you know, Dorte Bach, my colleague in the CTE. And what we wanted to do with this first meeting of the semester is a little bit different. Our usual format, as you know, is to start off discussing a reading that usually I'm the only person who has read, but so I summarize it. Hopefully that'll change this semester. And then we spend the second part workshopping, getting a presentation from one of our community members and workshopping some challenges that they're having in a class. Today we're going to do something a little different. Dorte and I would like to facilitate a kind of primer, a preparatory discussion of getting us ready for this semester. And we also want to share with you a project initiative that we are going to be rolling out soon and get your feedback on. And hopefully it'll be interesting to you guys as well. So without any further ado, why don't we start with the check-in, Dorte?
So actually, I do know almost everybody. Kate, I haven't met you, so this gives me a chance. And I also, want to give us a chance to get present to this opportunity to engage with one another for an hour. And I'm curious to hear if you wouldn't mind sharing a couple of things that come to mind when you think about this quarantine and how it's impacting you at this particular point, particularly with regard to your teaching. So we'll just do a very quick round. Andy would like us to, maybe Andy, given the numbers, do you still want to break people up into groups later on, or do you?
Well, I think we'll do it on a case-by-case basis. I think right now we can do it as a full group.
Yeah.
But I do think even with this small group, breaking us into two smaller groups can be useful for some of the other activities.
So what's life like for you at this point in time, and how is it impacting your teaching moving into the semester? So if you think about maybe 3 adjectives that describe right now your situation and tell us a sentence or two of how you think this is impacting your teaching.
You can go ahead and start. My name is Esther in Spanish, Poveda, and I teach a course sequence in the that is supported by the Civic and Community Engagement Program. I guess I have mixed feelings about how all of this is impacting me and my teaching. On the one hand, it's difficult and there's a lot of uncertainty. Some days I feel very positive and some other days not so much, so it goes back and forth. But on the other hand, there is positive things that come from a position of privilege that we all have been able to teach online and staying at home, and acknowledging all of that. When I talk to friends in Spain, there are high school teachers, and Spain didn't lock down after the summer, so they're all teaching in person with the windows open and their coats on in the city of Madrid, which is really cold. But I think it's made me more creative and also a lot more flexible. And I think those are two characteristics that have been really positive, and that I think I have tried to pass on to the students. So in the fall, I participated with my students in a pilot program. The students were tutors for Albemarle High School. And it was a very rocky beginning because the schools didn't even know what they needed or what they were doing. So we were changing the plans all the time. Not everybody was able to be a tutor, but we worked with wonderful people from the Equity Center that would come to class and just explain to them what the situation was. And there was this conversation going, acknowledging the difficulty of what we were doing and the importance of being flexible. So I was very stressed, but at the same time, it was very real too. And I think that came across in the reflections of the students and the emails at the end of the semester, in which they just acknowledge how difficult everything was and how important it was that we were there to just help in whatever capacity. And the good thing is that we continue this spring and everything is a lot more structured this spring. So all that flexibility paid off. And I think in my personal life, on the one hand, I miss a lot the social interaction, but I'm also a very quiet person. So I'm also welcoming the change of pace and the space that I have. So I don't know, it's that mixed bag and I try to juggle it every day. So positive and uncertainty, you know, they come hand in hand. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Esther, for starting us off. I'm going to time us so that we kind of make sure that we go, that we have time for everybody. So if you just want to do 90 seconds, that would be really great. And I see 2 people or 3 people unmuted. I'll let you figure out how to go.
I can do just 90 seconds or less. My biggest question, I've gotten used to online teaching, but I just have one question that I need to answer myself. Do I want to include the community engagement component online? So that's my only qualm. All right, somebody else.
Can you take 30 seconds and just say what you mean by that, Shu Chen?
Like have them come to the Zoom meetings. You know, my Chinese community friends to come to the Zoom meetings in class, during class time.
So I can go quickly. When I came on the call before everyone was here, I was like super enthusiastic because I just come off like looking at this syllabus. I'm excited about teaching a literature course this semester. And then when Dorothée said, what are the adjectives that describe your life right now? The one that came to mind first was gray. I just feel like my life has lost so much color. And I think that's one of the things that I'm kind of anxious about this semester is just like in March and even last semester, this was still fairly new, but I feel like just the drag of all of this online learning is going to be even harder for the students. And I already see that because I sent out my preterm surveys and like less than half of them have responded. Whereas by this point, fall semester, they all responded. I'd engaged with each of them individually. So I'm worried about the grayness and the drag.
Yeah, I'll go. Can you guys hear me? Sorry, I'm going to set up. Okay. Yeah, I think echoing these ideas about uncertainty, but I think that I've been able to pare down my lessons and my syllabi and make them simpler, because I think that the 1505, 1506 course is a writing course, and I've been teaching it for 7 years now. And so there's just so much stuff in it. So I've been able to work with colleagues on doing a redesign and making the lessons clear in terms of how does this activity give you a tool for this writing project? How does this lesson give you a tool for writing in sociology or whatever else? So that's been good, and being able to see the need to do that and take some readings out has been really good, even though I tend to like to do more and more and more. In terms of other aspects of my professional life, I feel I've been able to do more in the English department, whereas general faculty, I felt intimidated about that, especially with so many stars in the English department. So I feel like it's been more democratic, and I've been able to participate and have my voice heard in the faculty meetings and in undergraduate committee, whatever capacity.
I can go. My name is Charlotte Matthews, and I teach in the School of professional and continuing studies. I guess my three adjectives would be tensile, eclipsed, and juggling. My daughter is an emergency room technician and works directly with COVID patients and comes home every evening. And then I take her into the hospital at 5:45 every morning. And so I'm very much at the hospital and it's given me a lot of thought about what it means to teach. And she's now teaching others to start IV lines. So my personal life and my teaching life have come to be parallel train tracks.
I'm Frank Dukes. It's interesting because I was mentioning, well, so I've got a 2-year-old, so we're figuring out how do we give him, a normal experience when he's not actually being with any other children at all. But there are advantages. We take him, they have a river right out back, and we go there pretty much every day, exploring that. Then my students last semester, I'm always really student oriented. And I think just even hyper so in the last semester, and constantly every class, what was valuable about this class? What do you want to see differently? Taking more frequent breaks, oftentimes playing music during the breaks to add some color, Kate, to the, the grayness, of those. It paid off. I'm not necessarily a natural teacher, but the evaluations were great this semester because people knew that I was paying attention to what their needs were. It also helped the diversity of people that I was able to bring in, which I often do bring people in, but much more frequently than the past, because it's so much easier to bring people in and have different types of engagement. So I think looking at the challenges and finding ways to actually go beyond the challenges and improve things, even as the challenge of not being able to do the sort of quick back and forth that we could do, or let's just, right now I want to break into, you two got over here, go to the blackboard and, do this. Obviously that type of thing can't be happening. And then last, we have an adult program, the Virginia Natural Resources Leadership Institute, and we do 3 days, we do 6 3-day sessions. And so really thinking hard about every element of that. How do we make this work for people? What is that going to be? So I think it's making me a much better teacher, forcing me to be more deliberate in pedagogy. Oh, and so much more learning about what it means to be trauma informed. So, lots and lots of reading and figuring that out. I probably went over 90 seconds.
No, you didn't. This was perfect. Thank you so much. So Andy, I'm gonna, I think everybody has spoken. So I think we wanna just dive a little deeper into the practicalities of the semester. Andy, I'm turning it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. That was really, really helpful and thought-provoking for me to hear all of your insights. And some of you already touched on a question that I want us to think about now, but let's go a little deeper into it. And let's think about this upcoming semester. And in light of the fact that, which something that most of you said, that our resources are limited right now. Our mental, emotional, physical resources are limited. Given this, what are 1 or 2 things that you might prioritize in your teaching this semester? And what can you let go of? So I'll put those into the chat. I want us to think about, given our limited resources and the situation that we are living in right now, what are a couple things that you really want to prioritize, and what are some things that you think you can let go of? And let's do this. I'm going to divide us into 2 breakout rooms. Just take a minute to think about that individually, and then I'll cast you into the breakout rooms. we heard from Charlotte, didn't we?
Did,
We heard from Charlotte, didn't we?
okay, never mind. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's okay. So are we back, but they're not back? I think that's
what I was wondering. Okay.
Oh, so no, we're back in the main solar system.
I'm not sure that my students last semester learned any less, even getting rid of one book, right? You know, the sort of cramming, not that I ever felt like I was cramming, you know, but they learn different things, so.
Yeah. I'm just curious, we don't have to spend a lot of time debriefing on this because I think the main point of this was the conversations we just had, but I'm curious, is there anything that you heard in your breakout room that you found particularly helpful or consoling or eye-opening?
One thing was the
Esther
idea.
had, oh, sorry.
No,
Go ahead.
go ahead, Kate.
I was just gonna ask Esther to briefly explain her token system that
Yeah.
I thought was really interesting, and I might try really quickly in the next few days to fit that
Yeah.
into my syllabus.
I cannot take full credit for this. This was something that Hope Fitzgerald in Learning Design and Technology suggested, among many other things, last spring when we had to switch to online, you know, from one week to the other. And in language courses, we tend to have more smaller assignments than in other type of courses. And she suggested that we instituted a flexibility policy upfront before coming back. And I kept that in the fall, and I'm keeping that in the spring. So she called them tokens, and I call them tokens too. And what I do is I put in the syllabus a flexibility system, and it comes prefaced by acknowledgement of the difficulty of being online and the uncertainties, everything that we're talking about, and that I'm aware of that. So for certain assignments, I grant upfront of 3 tokens that they can use for extensions that are no more than 48 hours. Sometimes the students just need 6 more hours to complete something to their satisfaction, you know, and they're afraid to ask, or they think they're going to get a no. So the thing is that they need to request them beforehand, and they don't need to even give an explanation. They just need to say, I need a token for this. And I just grant it. And the other token is for being late, not for being late, for an absence that goes beyond the accepted number of absences in the semester. So they like it a lot. They hardly use, I mean, they didn't use it that much, honestly, but just knowing that it was there was very comforting. And also knowing that I knew that they might need it, and that there was no explanation needed. Just reach out and say, I need a token. Is that okay? Yes, just let me know when you upload whatever you're requesting a token for, because you know, I'm not going to be looking at file drop or whatever it is the whole time. So they really appreciated it. And I was just telling Kate that they actually communicated better because they knew they could reach out. So I felt like they communicated better. They felt supported. And what is, you know, it doesn't make any difference, 6 more hours, 12 more hours. Not everybody asked for the token. So it was not anything time consuming for me. So those are in the syllabus, and they really, you know how they focus on some aspect of the syllabus, like there's something really important and something minute, and they focus on the kind of like minute thing. Well, that is like, it stands out for them because so if you can find ways of like having like a policy of flexibility, even if then you have to come up with another one that you didn't realize you might need, I would put it in the syllabus. It works really well.
I remember the token system is in the specifications grading as well. Just so it's in that type of grading. I participated in that for one semester, and I think the call was out last semester as well, but I just felt maybe it's too much change for my class for now. And last time when I did it, students didn't like it or something. So
Yeah, I love it,
Was there
Esther. You know, I use the token system too as part of the specifications grading scheme, but I do think the token system works really in any class, and it is upfront communication that takes away uncertainty, and you know, all the benefits that you are describing are also, in my experience, really huge. And it cuts down on all the, you know, communication that you might have, and the students feeling apologetic, and which adds another point of stress for them. So I can only second
And they
that.
don't need to apologize. And I think is the beauty of it. They don't need to give an explanation. They don't need to apologize. I'm understanding that this might happen. So it works.
I actually have question for Kate, who was in my breakout room. Kate, considering the situation now, is it possible to adapt your community engagement to online format, or it's just too difficult?
You know, I could, and I know that Kate Stevenson, you were working with Rose Cole to adapt through Madison House. I had reached out, you know, to some of my partners, but they were just so busy transitioning that I couldn't ask them, you know. So I just decided, you know, I was working with Steve Parks. He did an engaged learning seminar that Kate also taught in the summer. And we came up with that idea. And yeah, I think that I could reach out, and that's a good point. And but the tutoring from student to student went so well. I found the first years really liked connecting with an older student and asking questions they wouldn't ask a professor, you know, or a regular writing center tutor. And they really developed good relationships. And it's something that I've been reading, you know, in my writing classes for years, is that we have all these programs in place, and that's great, and we need to keep doing them, you know, to support first years, especially first generation first years. But what they get, you know, is they get mentored from other students. That's mainly where they're getting their support, is what I'm reading in the writing and hearing. So I think creating this opportunity, I might even do a section in the future post-COVID where we do mentoring, you know, where they can choose to do mentoring first years, or they can choose to go into the community.
I want to share one thing as I'm thinking about this, the tokens, and one of the things that we talked about in our group is, you know, being less focused on, you know, grades and you know, did they you know, fulfill every assignment, et cetera, et cetera. And I actually would hope, and I know it's not going to happen, but I would hope that every student in my class is taking this semester pass fail. I just don't understand.
Me too.
I don't, and you know, I just don't understand grades right now. It just, and so I'm just curious what other people think about that.
Right. For instance, I can tell my students admit to me when they are writing these written tests, they are doing it open book when they are not supposed to. So I decided to not delve into that at all. I just say to them, type it up then. If writing these characters is so difficult for you and you write most of the characters wrong, I don't care for that. So type it up and then revise by writing the character correctly afterwards, after I pointed out, you know, which character you need to practice. So yeah, I do not care for these grading because I don't know, it's just too stressful for everybody. And also, people kept on saying, "Oh, you can proctor online," but no, you can't.
I mean, does anyone have a conversation with their students about this early in the semester, because they have 2 weeks to make the decision?
Okay, I actually didn't talk to them about it, but I will this time.
how about anyone else? Has anyone else thought about this?
My students who went pass fail should have gotten A's, you know, so you know, and I think that also my upper level students who take writing and tutoring across cultures are very competitive. There's a lot of pre-med students, there's a lot of students in McIntyre looking to go into international business. And they want to keep their GPA up, you know, and so, you know, I'm fine with it. And I push them as hard to do really strong work, but yeah, with the upper level students, it's not really an issue. And with lower level students, like, yes, but the ones who opt for credit, no credit, don't need this, you know? So I need to think more about it before I talk to students.
I found the same thing. People who don't need to change it to credit, non-credit did it. I found the same thing.
Esther, go on.
I think it also depends on the class that you're teaching. My class that has the community engagement this spring is really a cultural conversations. It's an advanced conversations class in the Spanish department. I just put the community engagement in, and the conversations are going to be about education as a tool for social change. And so we're going to visit different education projects in different countries. And they all advocate for no grades, you know. So we're going to be talking about that. Anyways, when we talk, you know, about all these examples, right? About what is the role of grading or assigning grades. So what I did was all of my assignments are pretty much on completion, but they come with a little reflection on what they learn and what they want to learn more. And also because this conversation is very hard to give a grade, like what is a conversation, you know? So I figured my assignments would be very open and creative and to foster more talking, recording themselves instead of writing if they want to do that. So my rubrics are kind of like checkpoint, you know, checklists. Did you do this? Did you attempt to do this? And I think that is going to also take off a lot of pressure for me because, you know, we're just going to talk about all of this. So I think it also depends on the type of class, you know, that you're teaching that allows you that flexibility to just use the grading to give feedback or to encourage to go beyond, right? If I was teaching a different class, probably I wouldn't be able to do that. But with a conversation class, I love it because it's, you know, it has all that freedom.
So thank you for that. We'll continue this conversation as the semester goes, but I just wanted to put that out there as a concern. I can see that other people are thinking about it as well. In the interest of time, let's, because we've only got about 30 minutes left in our session today, so let's shift gears. And I told you early on that Dorte and I were going to share with you an initiative that we're developing, and then we would like your feedback on what we're thinking about. I've mentioned this to a few of you individually last semester in informal conversations, but we are going to be announcing in a couple of weeks, the CTE, a new initiative called the Community Engaged Teaching Scholars Program. And the purpose of this program, you know, is to help, we'd like to recruit 10 faculty from across grounds that are interested in deepening their pedagogy with community engaged teaching, and specifically interested in developing a new course starting next academic year, either an entirely new course, community engaged course from scratch, or transforming a traditional course into a community engaged one. And some of the resources that we will provide in this process are you know, a 3-day course design experience, the faculty learning community like we have now, one-on-one consultations, and we also will be providing some funding. So The one thing about this new course that's important for sustainability purposes is that it's a 1-semester course, but that it will be taught at least 3 times over the next 5 years. And what we will provide in terms of funding is $4,000 for the first iteration of the course, and then $2,000 for each of the subsequent iterations. And there also may be some additional funding available from the Office of Academic Outreach. So we haven't announced this yet, but we will be, so you are all getting a sneak preview of what's to come, and we'll be announcing this fairly soon, in the next couple of weeks. And there will be an application process. It won't be due until the end of March. And then, you know, so there'll be more information. So I don't think right now is a good time for us to go into a lot of detail, and I'm sure you have questions, and there will be opportunities to talk about the details in the coming weeks. And of course, you can follow up with us afterwards as well if you have specific questions. But what we wanted to do right now is to get your feedback in helping us think about designing this program. And I'm going to hand it over to Dorte now, who's going to help facilitate this next portion.
So one of the things that we would like to know from you is, so in your past experience, if you think about your own growth into somebody who has worked with the community and actually found ways to make it into a mutually beneficial experience, what kind of support have you found most helpful? So if you think about us as people who are interested in initiating a new group of faculty who are really interested in this, what kind of support have you gotten that really helped you in the process? Or what kind of support would you wish you would have gotten to help you in that process?
When I conducted it, I felt the logistics seemed to work out fine, but I feel maybe other people might be able to suggest smoother logistics. And then in my plan of involving international experts in the near future, I wonder if I could get suggestions on how to make it practical and effective. So mainly the logistics that I would love suggestions from. My students always give me suggestions, but you know, sometimes I feel it doesn't work that way from them. So if I could get support on the detailed design of the interaction, the pre-meeting, during the interaction, and post-meeting, what could be done. Of course, I have my ideas, but fresh objective input from you guys would be very helpful.
Thank you, Chichen.
I really like seeing sample syllabi from other faculty who have done this before. That's something that Madison House had on hand when I started this course. That was really helpful. I mean, another thing that was really helpful was the seminar that was part of the Jefferson Trust that Kate Stevens and Steve Parks and Tamika Carey ran, where it was just us reading and talking, you know, for 2 weeks. I don't think we would be able to do that again. You know, I think we read like, I don't know, 1,000 pages of articles. But it was really helpful just to have that kind of sustained study. But I think just a lighter version of that is being able to look at syllabi, looking at the structures, looking at the logistics of, you know, how you distribute participation and award points for community. Like, how do you, you know, it's all very foreign. And just being able to talk to other faculty who have been doing community engaged courses for a while. The one I looked at in particular was one out of Curry, was the So You Want to Change the World, which was really helpful. And Kate Stevenson's syllabi was also really helpful.
I agree with Kate. And one thing that was very useful for me was a resource that Rose Cole shared when I was preparing the first iteration of my community engagement class, and it was all this literature on reflections, guided reflections. And if I hear you correctly, you know, the idea is that a course that is already existing, to give it the community engagement component. And the first time I taught it, I just got permission from my department. I just did it on my own over the summer, read whatever I could come across. And the hardest thing was to bring together the community work and the class work, to like find a space that didn't feel artificial, like, oh guys, how is it going? I had asked him to keep like a journal, but it got really boring. So Rose shared with me all these literature on suggestions for guided reflections, and I incorporated those in the class as low stakes writing, because it was a writing class, and also for grammar practice. But I developed those reflections leading up to an experiential academic essay, and that worked really well. So I think like providing strategies, in addition to what Kate said, providing strategies to bring in how do you talk about what they're doing in the community in a productive way in the classroom without it getting repetitive, and with that experience leading to something. And I can share with you those guided reflections, all those documents that Rose shared with me. I'll be happy to share them with you guys. But they were extremely useful, and I just picked 5 that led to that final paper, and that brought everything somewhat together.
That was very helpful. Yeah, Frank.
Besides this networking, right, is one of the areas, and the other syllabi. I don't know if people know of the USOR program, undergraduate student research, and I have 4 USOR students this semester, crazy, that are helping. So most of my work is engaged communities. Some of it though is paid, and we have paid interns that work with us. These interns are paid, but they're not paid by my institute. They're paid by the university to do this sort of work that we're doing with them. And so, yeah, you could look up the USOR, USOAR. I think they start around May, looking for faculty that would be interested in offering these experiences for them. And I involve them in pretty much everything that we do. So they're helpful in note taking and getting on phone calls with me, and then one of them working on with a community just yesterday around how do we organize all of these documents that we're going to be doing. So lots of things.
I was just speaking with the provost of UVA's provost for foreign international. I can't remember the term of his title, the provost, and they have this pilot of Global Mentors program, which they hope to sustain, and it is geared toward kind of international experience for our undergraduate students. So I wonder if CTE wanted to collaborate with them in terms of mutual support. Like
Who's that person?
Steve Mull, Mull. Yes, I wonder if this sounds like you could work together in making this program stronger for either office.
This is super helpful, you guys. Thank you so much. What else? What are some other ideas that come to mind as you think about things that worked well for you, or things you wish you had had, especially starting out, but even now? What kinds of instructional support in particular?
I know that when I have a unit in all my classes where I have my students choose a way to engage with the community on their own and then write an essay about it. I would love support on finding the right balance between examples that I could, here are some things you could do, as opposed to, and as opposed to me backing up and having their ideas bubble to the surface. For instance, this may be a little different from but I have everyone, they're doing a community service within the class. And I had a student during COVID who is a very skilled with technology, and he went into a adult retirement community, proclaimed that he was good at setting up like cell phones and TVs and remotes, and he figured out a way to get like rooms sanitized, and he went in and set up all these people's stuff, and I would have never thought of that. So I felt like I had provided too many possibilities. So to answer your question, kind of support that delicate balance between, here are some things that people have done in the past that work, and then my students have such great ideas.
So Kate, I want to just briefly go back to you because you said a bunch of things that I wasn't sure I actually. So Steve Parks and Kate Stevenson, they got a Jefferson Trust, and what was the focus?
So as part of the Jefferson Trust, we did a summer institute last June. It was 2 weeks of intense reading and talking. Steve Parks has, connections all over the world with other scholars who do this and brought them in.
And that was specifically around community engagement?
Yeah. I mean, we talked about the ethics of community engagement. We did a lot of reading, all of the major scholarship, I mean, in terms of what they were prioritizing. We collaborated. It was also really cool because the graduate students did it too, so we could make those connections. And then it was really great because eventually, when things go back to normal, we'll use the English department TA lines to have them help us with some of the logistics, because it is very cumbersome logistically to set up all of these partnerships. But it's also just going to be a great thing for them to go on the market with, having that experience.
So that was internal to the English department, or were there participants from?
Yeah, the writing program got the Jefferson Trust grant, I guess a year ago. And this was part of what they designed. They're also doing a website. I'm designing curriculum modules on teaching race, on intercultural communication, on immigration. Some of the other general faculty are doing housing. So I mean, lots of money and support and education, but it was really cool. And they paid us to take part in the seminar, and they paid the guest speakers, but it was really valuable to share ideas and also, bring the graduate students in with us doing this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
2 weeks. That's intense.
Yeah, and I can send you guys the syllabus. It was reading all day. And I wasn't as fast as reading as some of the graduate students because they're just machines. So there was a learning curve of getting back and reading theory quickly.
Yeah, that would be helpful. I mean, I can ask Kate too, but if you have it readily available, I think it might be good for us to know.
Let me see if I can put it in the chat. They did just a wonderful job with it. It was great.
Yeah.
How about I mean, part of what we're thinking about is 3 days is not a lot of time, and what's the right balance between the kind of reflection that you just described, Kate, getting a sense of the landscape and the scholarship on community engaged teaching, and kind of thinking about the big picture questions, and even reflecting deeply on teaching, the balance between that and just the nuts and bolts, the practical support, on issues like safety and logistics and transportation and administrative and financial issues and all of that, or even kind of being introduced to the landscape of Charlottesville, understanding better the different community organizations. I'm just curious what people think about that as because you have to choose, you can't do everything. What's the right balance between those kinds of things?
And what Andy didn't say is the course design aspect, things that Esther mentioned with regard to the, reflection, just very concrete hands-on pieces that have to do with the actual work of enacting the course with students and community partners during the semester. So thinking about what would you want to, let's say you're kind of interested in this, and obviously all these elements are really important. If you had 3 days, what would you like to see happening in those 3 days?
I don't know if it would be 3 days. Well, it could be 3 days, because actually I did a 5-day training last year in February. But trauma-informed teaching and engagement, I think you can think of the trauma within the community as well as within the classroom. I think that could be quite powerful.
Maybe also having community partners speak about successful partnerships, problems that have happened and how to mitigate those things.
Yeah.
One thing that came out in the seminar was that these partnerships have to be really organic, and you can't, there's a lot of scholarship on things gone very wrong, incomplete scholarship. So if we could have maybe, even people from Madison House or program directors speak about how to navigate these relationships better.
I think it would, I'm not sure if the intention of the 3-week program would be to develop a syllabus or to tweak or to work on an existing syllabus. But I think if people came already with a syllabus, I think that's the most helpful, because to try to do everything starting from zero in such a condensed time, I think it works best when you already have something. And I personally, I would really appreciate the workshopping part that Kate was talking about, like having other colleagues read and give you feedback, and to be able to do the same for somebody else, because I think people are creative in different ways. I know I'm creative in one way, but then it's like, whoa, like I see something that somebody else is doing and I learn so much from that. So I think to make the most out of the 3 days, I think that would be very helpful, not to try to think that something is going to be produced from zero in 3 days, but something is going to take to the next level in 3 days.
Would you rather spend 5 days or 2 weeks? Not just Esther, but I'm serious. But as you're thinking about this, in an ideal world, if you had the time, would you want to spend a week or even 2 weeks approximating something like what Kate described?
I mean, going back to what we were talking in our breakout room about like taking content out and feeling happy about that and lightening the content of our syllabus, if this could be in the same spirit, I wouldn't mind, devoting more time and have time for things to sink in, to think about them, and not be rushed to produce something in a very short period of time. That would be my personal preference. I can't speak for everybody else. So yes, Andrew, like more time and less condensed, I think it would be better if that is possible.
Well, this will be an ongoing process as well. So then when the course is actually being implemented, we'll continue to workshop and troubleshoot. But you're talking about even upfront in the design period, even before a course, even before you start rolling out a course, right, Esther? I'm going to throw out a couple of other ideas and just give a thumbs up or a smiley face if you consider something like this a must-have. You can even say it. How about, so someone mentioned this, but I just want to do a poll, designing reflective assignments. Teaching students how to be good listeners.
Hmm.
The power of relationships in a community engaged classroom. UVA Charlottesville community relations. All right, so it looks like we got a 2-week institute on our hands.
You could just hire Kate and Steve and Tamika to just do the one they did. It was great. I mean, it was writing focused, yes. So they would need to make some adjustments, but
If I can add also, I think Rose Cole from Madison House, she has a PhD from the Korea School of Education, and that's actually her area of specialty. And she would also be wonderful providing literature and facilitating.
Yeah, we'll definitely draw on resources from across grounds. Madison House, the Equity Center has a lot of expertise. And so, yeah, we're not gonna, our job is to help harness the resources that are already here rather than try to invent the wheel all over again. Dorte, do you have any other questions or follow-up questions on this?
The question that we also have asked ourselves, I'm curious about your thoughts, is whether now is the time to actually do this. Are we, we do have the resources to make it happen. And at the same time, we are also wondering about faculty bandwidth and community bandwidth. And I'm just curious to hear. I mean, you're continuing. You have retooled, and I can see opportunities at this particular time, given that there will be needs all over, and people might actually have connected in the community in different ways. I'm just curious what your thinking is.
So is this for anyone, this question?
Yeah, it's for anyone.
I feel right now, at least at this moment, my students and their sort of well-being, but I have a heavy load. I'm teaching 4 classes, are top for me. And I don't know if I could dedicate something this spring semester to this, but maybe towards the end of the semester as I get more. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
But just so you know, the application process, it's not complicated, but you know that would take place in the spring, but we wouldn't start any of the training or the institute until after the semester's over.
Okay,
And then this would be for a course that you're teaching sometime next year.
great. Okay, so yeah, thanks.
But Dorte's question still stands. Is now the time to do this, or do we do this in a year and instead offer, you know, individual workshops and things around these various elements that we're talking about?
If you could give us more context for your question, like, is it the concern the pandemic and the difficulty,
Yeah.
the additional
Yes.
dimension to all of this?
Exactly, and the uncertainty, you know, we don't know whether things will happen in the fall. Community organizations might have experienced being, Kate certainly has, not in a position to now take on thinking about, you know, collaborating with a university class. Too many moving pieces, maybe, but maybe not. Maybe this is a great opportunity.
Maybe more online interaction is to be discussed if we were to do it now. And then later on, maybe 2/3 of it will be about online setting, 1/3 will be physical setting. How about that? That way we benefit from both types of design and context.
My 2 cents about that is that the pandemic has created more need, actually, but it's hard to get that need in place, and you don't want to. It's not the role of the community agent to do that, to figure that out for you so that it fits your class. You have to have the flexibility in your class to work with the community agent. And I think something that needs to be really emphasized is that the relation that you build with your community agent takes a lot of time. That is not something that is going to be automatic. So I do think that this pandemic situation has generated more need, but it also has forced us to look at how we provide the help. And so I'm not sure if that answers. I think it's a good moment because it forces us to look at why we do this and how. So I'm not sure if that helps. I think it would help if the courses could be taught in the spring to give more time, and not, you know, maybe that would be like pushing the course one more semester to develop relationships and work and smooth things out. If the need comes from the community, it's going to work out. If you're imposing a need in the community, it's not going to work out. And yeah, and then because it's not, you know, you don't just give work to somebody else. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course it makes sense.
I think in terms of observing and learning from one another, it's a good time because the Institute was great because it was all online and we got like amazing speakers so we could just beam in, you know. But in terms of helping each other, I would be welcome to having people interested in doing this visit my classes and you know, look at my syllabus. And so there is some flexibility and giving us time to study and prepare. But then again, I'm just like a huge nerd. Like I just want to read everything and get ready and do as much work as possible, you know, prior to getting started.
It could also have the potential of identify like a common area of interest for research and producing a scholarship. So I would find that also very valuable. I have friends at Duke, and Duke has a very long established program for community engagement. and they have like working groups that have worked for many years, and one of the purposes of the working groups is to produce a scholarship. So they read with a purpose, or when they design their syllabi, they do it in a way that they can collect certain information. So that's like, you know, long term, but it could also be a good moment to get that going, because we can use the time for that, you know. So I think that in adding that element would also be, and it would give it more of a depth, and it to what we're trying to accomplish, like a long-term kind of purpose to it.
And I think having more time for collaborations, like at a meeting in this group a couple months ago, I forget his last name, but it was a gentleman from the law school who was talking about preserving the stories at an African-American school. It was just like, well, you need writers in there, you know, and we could collaborate, you know, and teach a class together. So having that time to open up, I mean, I know the logistics of co-teaching, I've never actually done it, so I probably shouldn't talk about it, but having that time, and I think that reaching across the disciplines and collaboration between different schools would be so wonderful.
Great. Yeah, I'm aware that we are at the end of the time, and I really honor and thank you, first of all, very much. This was super helpful to us. You know, there is a history at UVA of doing, you know, having support for this type of work in an on and off basis, but the hope is that we can actually now, for earnest, create something that can be built on over time. And certainly Bonnie Gordon in the college has already a structure. We are trying to collaborate with a number of people, including Rose Coles and the Equity Center. So, you know, it's not that we come to this new, you know, my involvement with this goes back to 2009, but it is hopefully something we can build up to something that Duke has. There's so much potential here, and hopefully we'll be at a different point in 3 years. Right, Ellen?
If a conversation with anybody at Duke helps, I do know some of the people that are involved, so just let me know and I'll be happy to put you in touch or to introduce.
That is very kind, Esther.
So Ellen, remember the Global Mentors program you sent us? I applied for that and got good experience from it. And although I didn't get it, and I think they are justified in their reasons, but I'm thinking it's a.
I will just want to pause here for a moment, Shu-Chen, and just say goodbye to people who want to leave, given that everybody dropped out without a formal goodbye.
Sure.
But if you, Esther, and if you, Ellen, and Shu-Chen want to hang on, please feel free.
I can finish with Ellen.
Sure.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Dorothy. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So Ellen, I wonder if you're related to their